I wanted to say a couple of words about Neverfail and then turn it over to my colleagues. I joined Neverfail about 7 months ago. Prior to that, I was actually at Tintry, and I know quite a few of you from my days at Tintry, either by actual face or by Twitter handle in many cases. And I had this amazing opportunity to come join the folks at Neverfail. What's that?
You were the poor guy that had to embroider the shirts?
I didn't embroider them myself, but I did have to pack a lot of them in bags and ship them, yes. So, so I had this amazing opportunity. I actually know a couple of people at Neverfail. One of my colleagues here, Nick, will talk about some of the work we've done with VMware, but when I was at VMware, I was introduced to Neverfail because we ended up licensing the Neverfail product as a VMware product. And so we'll talk briefly about that, but that's how I know them. And then there was this amazing opportunity to join a really great team of people I knew. And that's what brought me there. We're pretty well established. Nick will talk a little bit more about the company, but let me just do some quick introductions. I run marketing, so I'm not going to talk for very long because I know I'll just get things thrown at me. Nick is you've been at Neverfail for 6.5 years. Does our strategic OEMs and business development and knows a ton about the industry. You can introduce a little bit more about yourself in a minute, but he's going to talk a little bit about the company. Douglas over here, Douglas Hanley is, what's your title? Chief Architect or Product Manager. Product Manager. Yeah, and we'll talk about our new product coming up. Next to him, Ashwin Kotian is our head of product management, and I used to work with him at VMware, so we know each other pretty well from those days. Kelvin Klibman in the seat there, our CTO, and Paul Dossi, who heads up, basically a head of customer, chief customer officer, sorry, head of support and customer, basically all things customer. Josh Mazgalis does product marketing and actually chief storyteller, is that right? Is that what we said? Yeah, chief storyteller, yeah. And then Alton Yu, who actually works with Nick on the OEM. So we're local, so we can all gather here, and it gave us an excuse for those of us who are not in Austin to come here as well. So, and the thing about Neverfail that most interested me when I heard the story was the focus on customers and on making the customer experience really about building trust with the customers and protecting their businesses from downtime. And that whole experience, that whole notion of that's really what the business is about, that they knew what they were about, is what kind of brought me in. So that's all I really want to say. It's just a quick introduction, and thank you for being here and hosting us. And Nick, why don't you talk a little bit more about what we're doing?
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Super duper. So yeah, we are local, but you can probably tell from the way I talk, I'm not exactly local to these parts. I'm visiting you from jolly old England, but my colleagues are also of Scottish extraction, and you'll hear that firsthand a bit later on, and also Irish extraction. And just last night, the three of us walked into a bar, and the barman said to us, "Is this some kind of joke?" Boo boo, okay. So yeah, my main role in the company is to tell lame jokes and also to introduce the company to you. It says corporate development there. You should strike that. I'm a salesman. But I'm a salesman from a technical background, so at least I'm somewhat qualified to be in front of you, but not as much as others. Let me just give you a view of who we are, where we've come from, and then I'll tell you where we're going in the next slide. So we would describe ourselves as a business continuity software infrastructure product, and the viewpoint that we take on solving the customer problem around continuity is to try and limit the impact of any kind of downtime on the ability of that customer to interact with key business applications. So we're trying to take a viewpoint directly from the customer in managing how we protect them from infrastructure failures. And we think that's somewhat unique because a lot of people just take infrastructure viewpoints, and we're trying to measure the impact on the end user and try and mitigate the effects of downtime from their standpoint. So we've been in business for 12 years. And in September, we're going to launch the first new product for 12 years. So this is a big deal for us. And the purpose of being here is really to kind of show you the product, give you some insights into what it will do. But bear in mind, we're in the middle of a beta cycle. The product has been built using agile methods, and we're hoping to feed back constructive input into what finally pops out as a GA product. So we're really keen to hear your feedback. We're really keen to tweak things where you can spot something we've missed. So please do bear that in mind as we describe what this thing is to you. The focus of the product is IT continuity management. So you can think about it as being a monitoring environment that monitors a production infrastructure and tells you when change occurs in that infrastructure, what is the impact on your DR preparedness or your high availability preparedness. So to give you an example, if you have a virtual machine running in a VMware cluster and vMotion takes it somewhere else which is not protected, this system is designed in real time to pick that up and tell you that you have a potential SLA violation. So that's kind of the focus of this. Douglas will tell you an awful lot more about it. In terms of who we are, we have a very international kind of focus. Our largest office is here. You can see the bridge. Pennybacker, right? Is that what it is? Our main dev center is split between Stirling, where the architects like Douglas live, and a place called Cluj-Napoca, and what you'll see there is Dracula's castle, because it's in Transylvania. I'm based in the UK office, categorized by a moo cow there, but we have outposts in Dubai and Sydney. So over the last 6.5 years that I've worked for the company, I've done OEM deals. That's been the main focus of my existence. So I've brought on board people like VMware, SolarWinds, eVault, Cisco, who have all licensed our technology and incorporated that in their own products. We've got around 2,500 customers that are using Neverfail that we've sold to, but there's about another 2,500 that are using the technology through the license with VMware, SolarWinds, and so forth. And Paul runs what I would think is a world-class support organization. We feel we can make that claim because we measure customer satisfaction after the end of every single support call, and that's the stat that we get. So where we've been as a business, I would describe it as a purveyor of superior plumbing. That's what we do. So our plumbing is designed to essentially deliver recovery time objectives sub 2 minutes and recovery point objectives of sub 5 seconds. And that's been our differentiating characteristic as a supplier of plumbing. So we fit in this space here, and we categorize it as a continuous availability solution. However, what we've seen in the market over the past few years is that plumbing per se has become commoditized, and price points have dropped. And one of the consequences of being in the continuous availability space, I'll describe it to you like this. If you were to graph out recovery time objective, and let's say that's 24 hours there, and if you look at, on this axis, if you look at market size, in terms of dollars or pounds or whatever, you've got this kind of thing going on. So kind of in this space we see backup 1.0, good old Neverfail operating in this space here, an intrinsically limited market because there aren't that many applications that actually need, you know, sub 2 minutes RTO and sub 5 seconds RPO. And what we've seen over the years is that backup 2.0 is encroaching in this direction here. So what we've done with our product strategy is to take it further back in the life cycle of planning disaster recovery and then further forward into the area of assuring and optimizing infrastructure that provides disaster recovery and elevating ourselves into the management stack so that we can effectively cover all of that with our architect. So architect integrates with technologies that span this continuum, and it's absolutely not predicated on somebody being a customer of our existing products. It's a new market for us. So that's kind of the business continuity lifecycle, and I'll hand over right now to my colleague Ashwin, who's going to tell you a little bit more about how the strategy will roll out over the next year or so. Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So I've been to quite a few events such as this, but I think this is the first time that I'm actually speaking with technology bloggers. So it's kind of a first for me. So very excited to be here. And as David mentioned, definitely looking forward to your feedback on where Neverfail is going and growing. So in terms of what Nick briefly mentioned, right, in terms of how some of the new age data center technologies, primarily virtualization, they have commoditized the availability elements that seem to present a big problem to more legacy applications. And we realize that, and as we look at what's happening out there in the industry in terms of customer adoption, technology changes, we see that this has overall lowered the cost of DR, because DR was this niche thing which was expensive. You needed similar storage arrays on the other side as secondary site, etc. A lot of these traditional challenges have gone away. So what has happened that we've seen is that as the cost of DR has tended to a lower cost, we see more and more workloads being designated to be protected in a data center. So even your tier 2, tier 3 workloads are at least identified as potentials, let's say for backup or backup 2.0. And what this has tended to is kind of sort of a sprawl in terms of number of workloads that need to be managed from an operational perspective on an ongoing basis. So where we are looking at how we add value in this ecosystem, because we have always been at the lower layer of infrastructure. And we see that because VMware, Microsoft, and other vendors have essentially addressed the gaps that existed. We want to make sure that we add value at the right integration points, if you may. So from our perspective, kind of up-leveling our focus from application-centric continuous availability to more of a holistic BCDR management value add is where we think that we would be most effective. In terms of talking about this holistic BCDR perspective, I mean, we kind of want to look at what is the core of what needs to be managed when it comes to business continuity, IT continuity for a business. Typically these translate into protecting a business service, because at the end of the day, it's the business service that needs to be available. What does the business service consist of? It consists of applications, it consists of underlying hardware, virtual or physical, underlying infrastructure, network storage. So there are multiple intertwined dependencies within that chain that typically you wouldn't have complete visibility into. So that's really the first point of value that I think we are looking to provide with regards to where we are going in terms of our management focus. And when we look at business services, right, these days, everything needs to have a service level component. So there's a service level metric around security, around performance. In our case, it's around availability, which is measured in RPOs, RTOs at the very minimum. So when we look at it from a SLA perspective for the business service that needs to be protected, we look at two core components of our product portfolio that we believe will make this happen. So Nick talked about a new product we are bringing to market, which is IT Continuity Architect. And then there is another product we'll be launching pretty shortly called IT Continuity Engine. And I'll talk a little bit about it. Douglas will definitely go into some more details of it. But in essence, what we are looking at is between the continuous availability promise of no user downtime with what we have been calling that we have been delivering with Heartbeat Failover Engine. We are rebranding it to IT Continuity Engine, primarily because we believe our value proposition is applicable to more than just failover. We keep systems running. We keep IT running. That's our promise, right? And in addition to what we do, we want to make sure we manage the complete life cycle. So how do we get to it, right? So IT Continuity Architect, in essence, is a BCDR planning and operations management tool with a focus on 5 core use cases. First one is BCDR planning and baselining. In essence, we automate the identification of which are your most critical machines, what kind of SLAs do they need, all based on an automated discovery over your network, and essentially learning, identifying, and helping you building the right SLAs. Second core use case is around SLA management. So once you have established a baseline of what your SLAs for availability are, And given that in the modern data center where things are changing very dynamically, especially in a virtualized environment, how do you ensure that these SLAs are being met, right? So that's kind of the second core use case. So if there is any violation, we are the ones who will be kind of flagging this up and notifying you. And it's really up to you, the end user, in most cases the operations team, to identify if this is an acceptable violation because you're going through a maintenance window, or if this is something you need to take notice of, right? The third one is scenario-based modeling, which is more focused on kind of proactive management around risk assessments and impact analysis. Fourth one is around DR assurance, which is really the largest or biggest promise that we are looking to deliver as part of this comprehensive suite, which is to make sure that at any given point in time, when your DR plans need to come into play, they actually work. Because if not managed, monitored appropriately, you are at the risk of fundamental changes within the infrastructure being out of sync with your DR plans or vice versa. And so when you have this disaster scenario, you probably might be in a scenario wherein your DR plan may not work. So you do not want to take that risk. So how do you manage that? So we are looking at a DR assurance use case, which essentially automates non-disruptive DR testing, not just of our core product, but also of other BCDR products that customers may already have invested in, right? Last but not least is a focus on benchmarking and compliance, which is more to do around you have built a baseline of SLAs for your environment. You have continued to monitor it, massage it, optimize it to how your environment is changing on a frequent basis. And then, in essence, comparing these baselines with probably baselines from your peers in the same industry, in other industries. So kind of giving some sort of comparison elements to identify best practices, or just in essence pass a compliance audit, right? So these are kind of the high-level perspectives we have in terms of where we want to take this product, right? So that's Architect. Douglas is going to give you a more detailed insight into what that product does. The second piece is really, as I said, our promise to deliver continuous availability, which today focuses primarily on tier 1 solutions with, close to 0 RPO, less than 2-minute RTO is what we promise, but can also be applied to lower tiered workloads. But in essence, we believe with IT Continuity Architect that overlooks the management elements of the life cycle of a BCDR plan, along with IT Continuity Engine, and the other third-party BCDR solutions in the ecosystem, which we are looking to engage more actively in. Because today we are primarily building integrations with VMware, vSphere, and other APIs that are available, mainly from a BCDR perspective. But in future, we are looking to expand our API set as well as integrate with other vendors, whoever they might be. Again, we haven't really gone down that path yet. But we want to make sure that we are that single pane of glass that provides you operations management from a holistic perspective.